Rise for the Lord's Prayer. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit, amen. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Councilor Milanazzo, Councilor Ramirez.
Here.
Councilor Broderick.
Here.
Councilor Caulfield.
Here.
Councilor Donahue.
Here.
Councilor Elliott.
Here.
Mayor Martin.
Here.
Councilor Armand Mercia.
Here.
Councilor Rita Mercia.
Here.
8 present, 1 absent.
Thank you. I do have a few requests for moments of silence. Do any members of the council have any? If not, I will read these from up here. First is for Emma Miner, who was an immigrant from Germany, lived in Lowell for 79 years, was a city employee 25 years, worked in the school department as a traffic supervisor, also a veteran of World War II. Secondly, for Edna Flynn, better known to her friends as Sarge, also a World War II veteran and longtime city resident, and well known to anyone who played Little League at Olivera Park, as I did. She showed up for every game for many, many years and really was a source of encouragement and one of the best fans of Little League baseball in this city. And finally, for Agnes Langtang, whose daughter is an employee of the school department, Marguerite Farley. Mrs. Langtang was also a longtime resident communicant of Sacred Heart Church and the Holy Rosary Sodality. They're all fine citizens of Lowell, and they'll certainly all be missed. If we could rise in a moment of silence and darken chambers in their memory. May they rest in peace. First item on the agenda, minutes of the January 9th meeting for acceptance and approval. Motion to approve by Councilor Broderick, seconded by Councilor Rita Mercier. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? The minutes are approved. Under unfinished business, we have the quarterly traffic ordinance. An ordinance amending the Code of Ordinances, City of Lowell, Massachusetts, with respect to Chapter 13 thereof, entitled Motor Vehicles and Traffic. There is a motion to waive the full reading. This is on for second reading tonight. So moved by Councilor Broderick, seconded by Councilor Ramirez. All those in favor of waiving the full reading say aye. Any opposed? The full reading is waived. Remember, this was deferred from last week because we thought there may have been a problem with the advertising. So, what is the wish of the council?
Move approval.
Motion to approve by Councilor Rita Mercia, seconded by Councilor Broderick. Roll call, please.
Councilor Milanazzo, Councilor Ramirez.
Yes.
Councilor Broderick.
Yes.
Councilor Caulfield.
Yes.
Councilor Donahue.
Yes.
Councilor Elliott. Mayor Martin.
Yes.
Councilor Armand Mercia.
Yes.
Councilor Rita Mercia.
Yes.
8 yeas, 1 absent.
Next item, under City Manager's portion of the agenda, are communications from the manager with responses to various council motions and requests. Any questions or comments on any of the communications? Hearing none, motion to accept the communications placed on file by Councilor Broderick, seconded by Councilor Ramirez. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? The communications are accepted. Next item is a communication from the Planning Board regarding extending the TMU zoning district at 5557 Bridge Street. This is a recommendation from the Planning Board to be referred to a public hearing on February 6th. Is there a motion to waive the full reading by Councilor Broderick, seconded by Councilor Elliott? All those in favor of waiving the full reading and recommendation say aye. Any opposed? The full reading is waived. This matter is to be referred to a public hearing on February 6th. So move. Councilor Rita Mercia.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Is that 550 or 570 or? It's saying.
Yeah, it says in the recommendation itself, I'm sorry, it is 550 and 570. It's a typographical error on the agenda.
That's fine. So moved, refer it to.
So moved, refer to a public hearing on June 6th by Councilor Rita Mercia, seconded by Councilor Broderick. Councilor Elliott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I wanted to ask a question through you to the city manager. Mr. Manager, we did receive a report on this from, I guess it was from the planning board or the administrator, but I guess I was kind of curious. It didn't make a specific recommendation. It outlined a number of concerns that were taken into consideration from the planning board and ultimately defeated based on a 3-2 vote. But based on all of the zoning changes that we have adopted in the last couple of years, I was a little bit curious that planning development didn't actually take a position on it. They outlined the concerns that the planning board can take into consideration, but the new zoning code that we adopted did include, did primarily come from planning development, and rightfully so, to their credit. But there was actually no recommendation should this go forward or should it not. And I was a little concerned because the prior week, Ann Barton from Planning Development did take a position on another planning board item, i.e. the Rock Willie Group Home Street. So what, I think they're all important issues, but I think this was clearly an important, issue and something Planning Development should weigh in on, particularly considering that they were, they made the recommendation when we went through this whole rezoning issue. So, I think I was looking for a recommendation. There was one the prior week on Rock and Willie that I didn't particularly agree with on the group home, yet there was information provided, but no recommendation, I guess is my point. So what is the policy? Does planning development or your administration weigh in on some and not others, and why not?
I guess, Counselor, I would, if I may,
Sure,
Counselor,
Mr.
I would
Manager.
say that...
And I know this is going to a public hearing, but,
Right.
this clearly, in my opinion, was not a good project. And, we just did we just did the whole zoning, and this was asking for a rezoning, and there was no strong statement as there, I just looking for consistency, I suppose. So with that.
And I will, perhaps the best way for me is to get back to you on that with an official policy of what... I would say, though, that generally we do weigh all of the options and sometimes make recommendations and sometimes do not, the Department of Planning and Development. I think if you notice in here, the Planning Board has in fact recommended against
Correct.
the rezoning or the proposed zoning ordinance amendment. But let me get back to you with a more formal response.
Okay. And I think that's what I was asking for, Mr. Manager. What is the policy? So, we know as the governing body. And I have been cautioned by the clerk not to take a position on this because it is a public hearing, which I will not do. But what is the policy? And that'll help. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Armin Mercia.
Yeah, in looking into the Rock Street project myself, it became clear that DPD was actively involved in that project. In fact, they put it into the acre plan. Right. They requested the owners of the Rock Street house to participate, and so that, to me, explained why they were so actively involved in going before the planning board and getting this approved. I share what Councilor Elliott's concern is, are we picking and choosing? Is it because it was the acre plan? And so I'd be looking forward to that response. And also the motion that I made about getting a cost for the outside, the police officers that were utilized and paid for by a grant, if we could include that in it.
I will follow up with that information for you, Counselor. I think that you described pretty well the reason why Planning and Development did come out more actively on that particular project. It was part of that acre urban renewal plan. I believe the council is on record in a previous meeting, and I'd have to double check that, of having some support for that, those aspects of the urban renewal plan.
Okay. Roll call on the motion to refer to the planning board.
No.
To the public hearing, I'm sorry.
Councilor Milonazo, Councilor Ramirez.
Yes.
Councilor Broderick.
Yes.
Councilor Caulfield.
Yes.
Councilor Donahue.
Yes.
Councilor Elliott.
Yes.
Mayor Martin.
Yes.
Councilor Armin Mercia.
Yes.
Councilor Rita Mercia.
Yes.
8 yeas, 1 absent.
The next item is an order pursuant to Chapter 13 of the Code of Ordinances, City of Lowell, Massachusetts, concerning Section 13-6 thereof, entitled Temporary Experimental Regulations. Temporary traffic regulations are hereby implemented for a period of 60 days. Motion to waive the full reading by Councilor Broderick, seconded by Councilor Caulfield. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? The full reading is waived. Second reading by title pursuant to Chapter 13 of the Code of Ordinances, City of Lowell, Massachusetts, concerning Section 13-6 thereof, entitled Temporary Experimental Regulations. Temporary traffic regulations are hereby implemented for a period of 60 days. This matter concerns Chelmsford Street. I'm not sure the number on Chelmsford and Liberty Street, and it's a limit on the time for parking. Any questions? Roll call.
Councilor Milonazo, Councilor Ramirez.
Yes.
Councilor Broderick.
Yes.
Councilor Caulfield.
Yes.
Councilor Donahue.
Yes.
Councilor Elliott.
Yes.
Mayor Martin.
Yes.
Councilor Arman Mercia.
Yes.
Councilor Rita Mercia.
Yes.
8 yeas, 1 absent.
Okay. The next item is a vote approving the exemption of Allison Carroll from provisions of Mass General Laws, Chapter 268A, Section 20, whereas Allison Carroll is employed by the Parks and Rec Department of the City of Lowell as a Parks and Recreation Planner, whereas Allison Carroll desires to accept a position with the City of Lowell School Department as varsity gymnastics coach, and whereas in order to be employed in a second position with the city, an exemption from the provisions of Section 20 of Chapter 268 is required, whereas in order to qualify for such exemption, an employee must satisfy all of the conditions under Chapter 268A, Section 20B, and whereas the position of varsity gymnastics coach with the school department is with a completely independent department, whereas Allison Carroll has filed a statement disclosing the second job with the city clerk, and whereas the second job will be performed outside the normal working hours of the first position, and whereas the services to be performed in the school department as varsity gymnastics coach are not part of Allison Carroll's duties in her primary job as Parks and Rec planner for the City of Lowell, whereas Allison Carroll will not be compensated in the second position for more than 500 hours per year, whereas the athletic director at Lowell High School is certified that no employee of that department is available to perform the duties of the second job of varsity's gymnastics coach. Now therefore be it voted by the City Council of the City of Lowell as follows, that the City Council of the City of Lowell hereby approves the exemption of Allison Carroll from the provisions of Mass General Laws, Chapter 268A, Section 20, second reading by title, a vote authorizing the exemption of Allison Carroll from the provisions of Mass General Laws, Chapter 268A, Section 20. Any questions?
Move approval.
Motion approved by Councilor Rita Mercia, second by Councilor Broderick. Roll call.
Councilor Milonazo, Councilor Ramirez.
Yes.
Councilor Broderick.
Yes.
Councilor Caulfield.
Yes.
Councilor Donahue.
Yes.
Councilor Elliott.
Yes.
Mayor Martin.
Yes.
Councilor Arman Mercia.
Yes.
Councilor Rita Mercia.
Yes.
8 yeas, 1 absent.
Okay, the next item is a loan order for the arena ice surfacing system bonds in Lowell City Council to borrow $1 million for the purpose of financing the purchase and installation of an ice surfacing system at the Pauley Songus Arena, including all costs incidental and related thereto. It is ordered by the City Council of the City of Lowell by a 2/3 vote as followed. Ordered that the sum of $1 million is appropriated for the purpose of financing purchase and installation of an ice surfacing system at the Pauley Songus Arena, including all costs incidental and related thereto. That to meet this appropriation, the treasurer, with the approval of the city manager, is authorized to borrow $1 million and issue bonds or notes therefore under General Laws, Chapter 44, or any other enabling authority, that the city manager is authorized to take any action necessary to carry out the project, and that the treasurer is authorized to file an application with the Municipal Finance Oversight Board to qualify any or all of the bonds under Mass General Laws, Chapter 44A, and to provide such information and execute such documents as any such board may require for these purposes. Order recommended and introduced by Bernard F. Lynch, City Manager. This item is to be referred to a public hearing on January 23rd. Motion to do so by Councilor Broderick, second by Councilor Elliott. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Matters referred to a public hearing on January 23rd. Subcommittee reports. Councilor Donahue.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have 2 reports. The first, I'll try and make it brief, on the school building having to do with the Maury, the Maury School and the new Sapasara School. There was a meeting on January 11th. This is a joint meeting of the school committee's building committee, where Mr. McHugh, who's the chair, as well as Connie Martin, John Leary, Jackie Doherty was present, Jim Leahy was present, as well as you, Mr. Mayor, and Councilor Caulfield and myself met to go over this issue. As I know the council's aware, this has been an ongoing project. We've been kept up to date on a monthly basis by the architect as well as our project manager, Watermark. On that score, things are moving along. They received 223 responses for the pre-qualification bids. That included general contractors as well as subcontractors. There was one that has to go back out to bid, so there'll be about a 3-week delay in getting the whole projects out to bid. But cutting to the chase, and more importantly, a motion was made by Councilor Caulfield asking that the manager and the superintendent come to the council next Tuesday and make a full presentation of this whole issue. And the reason being is that, as the council I know is very painfully aware, when the project was first approved, going back 2001, the cost to the city was set in time, and now it has completely mushroomed, and now we're looking at about $20 million cost to the city, and over and above what those, because construction costs have risen so dramatically. And so we don't know what those projects are going to cost until they go out to bid. One of them in particular, the old Butler School, may pose even more expensive than what we're estimating. And that said, we'd like to wait until the bids came back so we'd know what we're dealing with to see if we could afford it. However, there's a program that we could take advantage of that the state is offering, whereby we can apply to transfer the money from that school, the Butler School, to apply to the Maury School, in which case we would get the 90% financing. But that decision has to be made by the end of January. I believe it actually was January 15th and was going to be extended. So the decision has to be made before, I apologize, we are going to have the information back from the bids. So without me wasting more time trying to explain it, time out.
Got some, bud.
Then we're going to hear from the manager and the superintendent next Tuesday night. I know Mr. Moses has given us some information tonight. We did ask that the financial information be distributed prior to next Tuesday to give the council some time to look at it. It is a money thing. It's also, we need to hear from the superintendent in terms of the need for all of these schools. So that's a report of progress.
Thank you. So, Counselor, did we agree on a time? We're going to...
We talked about asking the council to have a special meeting at 5:30 to take care of our regular business, and then 6:30 for this purpose, only because these meetings have been very lengthy. There's a lot of information to digest. And the feeling, especially among many of the school committee members, is you don't want to be in a situation where you only have 1 hour to consider all this information, and we have to decide by the end of January. So with the council's permission, if we could schedule our regular meeting at 5:30 next Tuesday, take care of and try and keep the agenda light so that at 6:30 we can take up the matter and presentation from the manager, Mr. Moses, the superintendent, on these two projects.
And I believe then we would not require a vote until then the following week.
Correct.
The
vote would have to take place by the 30th.
By the 30th.
But would have time to
So
consider.
councilors would have an opportunity to digest the information presented. Councilor Caulfield.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Councilor Donahue gave an excellent report. She has serious cold. So I'd just like to interject my feelings. It's a very complex issue. It's a very expensive issue. And we felt it was very important that we hold a special meeting so our colleagues would have a chance to absorb the presentation without making a harsh or rash decision. As Councilor Donahue indicated 2 years ago, this project was going to be $6 to $8 million to the city. Now it's up to $19 million, and no one can give us a definite figure of what it could cost. So it's very important, and that's the reason for the special meeting.
Okay, so I believe the motion by Councilor Donahue is that the council convene a special meeting at 5:30 next week to consider its regular agenda items. And then the 6:30 meeting would be devoted to this school building topic. So moved by Councilor Donahue, seconded by Councilor Caulfield. Councilor Broderick. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, so we do need a roll call on that motion.
Councilor Milonazo, Councilor Ramirez.
Yes.
Councilor Broderick.
Yes.
Councilor Caulfield, Councilor Donahue,
Yes.
Councilor Elliott,
Yes.
Mayor Martin,
Yes.
Councilor Arman Mercia,
Yes.
Councilor Rita Mercia.
Yes.
8 yeas, 1 absent.
Councilor Donahue, do you want
Thank
to
you.
proceed?
What a night for me to have two reports. Anyway, well, here goes. The Public Safety Subcommittee met tonight to take up the issue of removing the position of Chief of Police from civil service. And we had a presentation by the manager who gave us information and a recommendation that we move forward on this. Several cities of similar size of Lowell have done this. There are pros and cons. The advantage to the city is that it would give the city total control over the position of chief of police rather than the civil service board. Although we could, civil service laws change somewhat, we aren't relegated solely to whoever gets the highest grade on a test to be made chief of police. You can utilize an assessment center. Nonetheless, if I guess the best way to put it is if someone didn't work out well, the city would be in a very difficult position if they wanted to change the chief of police, if for whatever reason the position didn't work well. So that's the reason for the recommendation. There are a number of concerns and that the council had. Essentially, the council voted to adopt the recommendation and recommend this to the council as a whole to remove the position from civil service, provided on a couple of conditions. One, that this would be a contract position so that the chief would have security in his job. The manager was recommending anywhere from a 3 to 5 year contract, and I believe the Councilor Caulfield, after discussion, we're talking in the vicinity of a 4-year contract. And the other concern was that that person, whoever he or she may be, have some protection if possible, and whether it's by way of contract or not, so that they could return to civil service if their stint, let's say they had a 3-year contract, after serving the 3-year contract, the manager wasn't going to extend that person's contract, then they could return to their former civil service position without jeopardizing their career. So the motion was made to recommend adopting or to adopt the recommendation with that proviso and get a report back next week, I believe, from the law department on that issue. This has to go to a home rule petition to the State House, and then that could take a few months, and so we are dealing with the maybe a time-sensitive window on this issue. If it didn't come back soon enough, we may have to proceed with requesting an assessment center issue just in case that it didn't fly down at the State House. So that was the motion of the council. I guess technically, I don't know that we need a vote tonight, Mr. Mayor, because
I would expect this is going to come back under the city manager's portion of the agenda next week. So I think
that was the recommendation of the subcommittee.
So motion to accept the recommendation of the subcommittee by Councilor Broderick, second by Councilor Caulfield. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? The motion's accepted. Councilor Elliott? Sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councilor Donahue really wrapped it up. the important elements of it, but I think most importantly, as I mentioned in the subcommittee, many communities, the manager gave us a breakdown of most cities have taken the police chief out of civil service, and I personally think it's outlived its useful purpose. In the past, I think it was put in place to to prevent a lot of patronage issues and corruption and things of that nature. But I think in this day and age, we need to go to a contract where the police chief is not going to be put in there, and he knows he's in there for life, and we have little control. I think the manager really framed it. It gives more local control of the chief law enforcement official in the community, and I think that's what we need. By the same token, it does provide security through a contract, and the discussion was around 4 years. The maximum by statute is 5, as the manager indicated, but we're looking at approximately 4 years. So there is that security for for that individual to take the job, but by the same token, that individual can be held accountable for running the department in a more professional way, I think. So I support it. I think it's the right direction for us to head into. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Anything further on that topic? Okay. Additional subcommittee reports. Councilor Elliott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The Finance Subcommittee met this evening regarding the motion forwarded to us from Mr. Sullivan last week, and that is the ballpark and the arena. The manager did indicate to us that he's putting together a group or a collection or a commission. I'm not sure, Mr. Manager, exactly the formal structure that it's going to take, but essentially to take a broader look at the motion. There are some serious concerns and issues associated with, giving the arena away and the ballpark. So there was no formal action, but there was a larger discussion about, and I think it's revenue driven, because the arena is costing the taxpayers of the city money. It's not making money. I think there was a little bit of disinformation in the communication. It doesn't cost $2 million a year to taxpayers. The new auditor did indicate that this year is about $237,000 of a deficit. She's going to get us a report exactly how we got to that point, because there are some. There was a general fund transfer, so it could be close to $1 million, but it's certainly not too. That doesn't mean $1 million is by any stretch a small figure. But I think the larger picture is how, and the manager indicated he's been in communication with the Arena Commission. How can we close that deficit? And what are some of the other benefits that we do receive in terms of revenue, particularly parking? Which will lead to a larger discussion. And he'd indicate that, the Arena Commission is willing to look at any possible opportunities to raise revenue. Councilor Donahue did bring up the point of the auditorium charges a $1 fee per ticket for capital improvement projects, which led to discussion of the $1 million bond that we're looking to float to improve the ice. The ice problem, excuse me. Unfortunately, that's not worked into the Devil's Agreement. However, the manager's going to work with the Devils to look at that agreement to see if there are ways to reduce the cost and again raise revenue, whether it's through concessions or those costs associated with security, but just a general dialogue on how can we make that operation more sustainable on its own. So that's really a report of progress. Sort of dovetails with the loan order for $1 million, because it is running a deficit, and we need to close that deficit through whatever means that we can. So I think the manager indicated it'll be about 4 to 6 weeks. He'll come back with a report on the request and the status of the arena and how to make it a more efficient operation. So that's the report of progress from the Finance Subcommittee.
Thank you. Councilor Armin Mercia.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. One thing that was clear during the subcommittee meeting is that the deficit is a serious problem. However, the number fluctuates from whoever you're talking to. I think the thing that impressed me tonight is that a lot of people think that this is a hockey rink, but yet we had curling, synchronized skating, public skating, UMass Lowell, and I understand Disney on Ice is coming to Lowell. So it is more than just a hockey rink. I don't think that should minimize our concerns for the deficit now or even in the future, but I think there are some enhancement of revenues proposals that could be sought with the people who use the hockey and quote arena. It isn't just a hockey rink. I think that getting some surcharges on people who use it is a good way to pursue it. Meeting with the Devils again and see if maybe they can come to the table a little bit more than they have, and also with SMG, with their Boston Confectionery agreement that they have, so that everybody's working together to reduce that deficit so that the taxpayers of Lowell can find it acceptable. So it is a work in progress. I think that the manager will put some people together to address Mr. Sullivan's concern that was referred to the manager and the subcommittee. And also, I'm sure there'll be a lot more to be said at the public hearing. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Rita Mercier?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. That was a very informative Finance Subcommittee meeting regarding the arena, and a number of questions and concerns and issues were raised. Of course, to put a surcharge on ticket prices would help as well, and to revisit with the Lowell Devils and see if they might be able to help us to some degree. And we know that this is a huge expense that we'll be facing, and there will be a public hearing, and I don't know if anybody should read the paper where we say if we are supporting it or not, because we're not supposed to come to a decision, but weigh in the pros and cons, and after people just got their tax bill and trying to add another expense onto the burden of the city, it's kind of tough to do. But I'm always under the theory that we should maintain that which we own. We have an obligation, we have contracts, we have to do it. I don't like to repair my car, but there's times that I have to do it. So be that as it may, we did ask many questions that specifically I'd like a breakdown of what it costs to maintain the ice as it is right now, as far as utilities go, and I understand the utility bill is really skyrocketing because we're keeping the ice thing going right along. What is the cost by getting this out of the way? To what will we be saving? What is the cost to maintain it the way it is? And one of the questions that I had was, if we bond $1 million to repair the ice, how often will the ice be used if there is no longer a hockey team and they close up shop and leave, which I hope that they don't. Having said that, Councilor Armin Mercier alluded to the fact that it's not just an ice hockey rink. It's so many things take place there, like Disney on Ice is coming. That'd be in synchronized skating, and so many ice events that are there. So we kind of have to look at these things. But something that concerned me the most was way back in day one, when we thought about, or people thought about, an arena and how the city was going to foot the bill, and there were many of us that objected to that. Why put the burden on one entity, and being the city? Why can't we form a partnership, which we did with the university and the state? And I'm thinking that partnership existed back then, where the state paid $20 million and the city paid $4 million and the university paid $4 million, and it cost $28 million. So I'm thinking, where is that partnership today? Can they not help? So I asked through the manager to you, Mr. Mayor, to the manager, what can we do to see if these entities are still in place, that partnership still exists? Would there be any insurance to cover this? We don't know that, maybe not. I know that I heard this evening, and Councilor Caulfield alluded to this in the subcommittee meeting, that we heard from a local radio station this evening where the sports announcer called Alberta, Canada to an ice-making place, and he said that this was unheard of, that this should go so quickly, and we've only had the arena 9 years. Be that as it may, something happened along the way. I wish it would have lasted 20 years, never mind 30, but maybe 20 would have been good. Even a roof is guaranteed for 20 years. I don't know why this thing isn't, but be that as it may, there were a lot of questions. You're going to come back with a report. I kind of would have liked to hear about Jim Sullivan coming forward, former city manager, and getting a report as to what we talked about at that time that I made the pros and cons to the arena, and to the ballpark, but you said the report would be ready in 4 to 6 weeks. Be that as it may, we still have a major problem that we have to do something about. I'll be looking forward to the public hearing to hear people speak on it. I just want to justify why I vote the way that I do. That's strictly what it's all about. And so that's where I'm going to leave it, but it was very informative to hear your explanation and what should be done. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Caulfield?
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. It was an excellent subcommittee meeting at 6 o'clock. And what Councilor Mercia indicated is true. It's more than just a hockey arena. One of the greatest singers in the world, Sarah Brightman, a beautiful soprano, beautiful voice. She had the lead role in Phantom of the Opera in London, the lead role on Broadway. She performed at that arena to a standing room only audience. The Boston Pops has performed there along with many other artists. And it is more than just a hockey arena. But I listened to Bob Hatem on the radio earlier this week, and he indicated Lowell High School also has their hockey games there, and there's absolutely no concession stands open for coffee or hot dogs. And I wish you could look into that, Mr. Manager. But also at the subcommittee meeting, I requested that once they, if they should, rip up the floor to replace those pipes, have those pipes analyzed, get the thickness of those pipes, to make sure that the contractor and the architect lived up to the specifications that we requested, and to make sure that we got our dollars worth. It's just a sad state of affairs. It seems it's one thing after the other. And I'm as probably discussed it as many of the taxpayers, my colleagues, but I'll discuss that at the public hearing.
Thank you. Councilor Elliott?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just briefly, Councilman Leonardo did call me today, and he has a work obligation this evening that prevented him from attending both the subcommittee meetings, but he's very much interested in the Arena Commission and looking at ways and means to address that deficit as well. And the only other item I did want to mention on this loan order, the manager is going to bring in a report exactly how we got that figure. SMG and their professionals have come in with an estimate of around 700. Was it 730, Mr. Manager? But that's just a ballpark estimate. And the Arena Commission is also in the process of hiring an engineer, professional engineer, to evaluate the proposals before they go out. Is that correct, Mr. Manager? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Motion to accept the subcommittee report by Councilor Broderick, seconded by Councilor Elliott. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? The report is accepted. Under motions, the first motion is by Councilor Caulfield. The City Council requests the City Manager have the proper agency replace railroad tracks in Lucy Larkin Park that have been removed for renovations. Seconded by Councilor Donahue. There is somebody registered to speak.
Joseph Boucher, 260 Nesmith Street.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, City Manager, fellow council people. I am here to have a piece of our history put back in place that was taken away quite a few years ago. And I am very disappointed with the city when they rebuilt that park, they did not put it back there. This piece of track is part of the Lowell Railroad system, which goes way back to the Boston and Maine. And I did a little bit of research on this, and this piece of track should be put back there because other than the piece that we have here, there's only one known piece in existence, and that's at the Smithsonian Institute. And we should be very proud to have this piece. And I can't see it being put in some warehouse somewhere that we do not know where it is at the present time. And I think that's very disgraceful on our part to build something and have a thing in the city of Lowell in the past that we have destroyed a lot of. And I don't think this is proper by leaving this in some warehouse collecting dust that should be put back so our future residents of the city of Lowell should be able to see this. Plus, it's a great tourist attraction. And I'm very disappointed. Like I say, I'm very disappointed. And I think you people and us of the city of Lowell, concerned citizens, should have a way to restore this piece and put back in its original location. Now, I was given word that they took this out to put a walkway there. They had no reason to remove it to put a walkway. They could have moved the walkway down a little bit further. They put a walkway there and they put some shrubs there. I can't see why they didn't leave it there. And I'm pretty sure a good member of the city council people here that have gone to high school in the past, and I remember when I was in high school in the 50s, many times I walked by there and we talked about this piece of railroad. Because it was the original location, across the street from it was the original depot, where the steam engine and where we have a small park there. And I would like the city council to put some kind of a motion together, and if they want me to give them more details on it, I have some more documents right here in this envelope that I can give them copies I can have made up, and I can give it to them, and they can read them, to tell the history of this track and of the history of Lowell concerning this. It was given to the city of Lowell, I believe, in 1930. And this is my concern, and I do appreciate you people letting me speak before you on this matter.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Manager?
Sir, if I may, do you know when the tracks were removed, an approximate?
I would probably say approximately probably about, when the park was restored, probably about 20 years ago, maybe a little longer. I don't know the exact date. Because they did do the park over, and they put some granite pieces in that park when they did it over. And someone told me, the reason why we did that, because he had to put a ramp there to go along the canal so that some of the handicapped people could reach some of the small signs that they have stationed on the rail along the canal.
Do you have any idea where this may be?
I was told that it was in storage at one of the park's buildings.
Okay.
And is there any future date possibly we can get together with this to find out when we can put this thing back in place that we can consider?
Why don't we get a report and...
Let's hear from Councilor Caulfield. It's his motion, so.
Thank you. Joseph asked me to file this motion, and I did. And I know the administration will look at ways and means of putting those tracks where they belong. I don't know where they are either, but if they're in some warehouse or something. But I do believe it is a piece of history, and to remove it and just to discard it wasn't proper. So, Mr. Manager, if you can look into ways and means of addressing that, probably in the spring, you could probably find ways and means of putting them back. I don't know where they are right now.
Right. Just to be clear, we're not talking about railroad tracks the whole length of the park. This
Oh,
is
no, it's just a
one
small
section of
portion.
one section of
Oh,
track
right.
that
It's
was
very-
a commemorative
It's a very small
piece.
portion of tracks.
Right.
It's just a
Small portion-
symbol.
Yeah, it's right here.
Right. I've seen the picture, but not everybody's seen the picture.
Right.
So
It's just a symbol. Right.
So it's one piece of commemorative track that marked the park.
Oh, I see.
Okay.
And
Mr.
they do have a
Manager?
plat that goes with it. There's also a picture of the plat.
Yeah. Plaque is gone too?
Yes.
Right. You go get that.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor,
Councilor Elliott, I'm
I think
sorry.
it was important to note to the people watching at home that they're not looking at laying the track from one end to the next, that it's probably a 10-foot piece of railroad track that just commemorates the Boston to Lowell Railroad.
I think I would have rethought the motion if it was laying down a mile of tracks. Just as, I think, a small section of tracks that we're talking about.
Right.
If it-
Mr. Manager?
What we'll do, Mr. Mayor, is we'll refer this to assuming it's passed by the council, which I assume it will be, we'll have people look for it and hopefully be able to find it and see if we can come up with a process of putting it back and moving from there. Assistant Manager McCarthy will get some contact information from you so that we can keep you informed as to our progress.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you. Anything further? Councilor Rita Mercier.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was wondering if perhaps our resident historian, Mehmed Ali, might know where this is, since he's involved with the National Park Service and he knows a little bit about history. He might know about it or where it went. and it's probably in one of the buildings somewhere. Because I think something that important shouldn't have been discarded, so it must be somewhere.
Okay. Thank you. Councilor Donahue?
If it was moved when they put in the granite pieces, that was more recent. That was about 6 or 8 years ago, that public art granite. So I don't know if that was the case. It may not go back 20 years, but so maybe someone knows.
Okay. All those in favor of the motion say aye. Any opposed? The motion's approved. Next motion by Councilor Caulfield. City Council requests the city manager have the Division of Planning and Development report on the number of vacant homes and vacant lots throughout the city. Seconded by Councilor Rita Mercier. Councilor Caulfield. Oh, I'm sorry. There's someone registered to speak, Councilor.
Paul Johnson.
Councilors, Mayor, my name is Paul Johnson. I am the Vice President of the Coalition for a Better Acre, and I'm also an Acre resident. I would, on seeing that, I had to come down and speak because obviously one of our primary missions is to build housing for people to afford to live in. And Lowell, as we all know, can be an expensive place to live, especially if you're not making a lot of money. That being said, I think it would benefit the city to take this survey in more than one way. It would put properties back on the tax roll, for one thing, that aren't at the present, I'm assuming. Also, some of the properties are, quite frankly, beyond repair, and they're a danger to the city. They should be knocked down. There are crime problems associated with some properties. We have 3 properties on Moody Street owned by a Mr. Uwaka that are not in very good condition and have been known to drag drug problems into the neighborhood from time to time. They're all multifamily properties. They could all be rehabbed, hopefully, and made into housing for people to rent and or buy. There are other properties around the city also that could be made into places people could buy. I think the primary, as I said, would be these properties, providing they could be sold to developers, hopefully nonprofit, would be placed back on the tax rolls if they're not already. And if they are being paid taxes for, why aren't the people fixing them? Why aren't they doing anything with them? You know, they're just falling apart. There's a property on Market Street that's in the same condition. The garage on the back of it's falling off the building. There's a brick building on Market Street. The chimney is gone. The building looks like it's ready to fall down. You know, these are eyesores. Something needs to be done. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Caulfield.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I attended a meeting with the Coalition for a Better Acre last evening, and not last evening, but last week. And they requested I file a motion. And what this does, Mr. Manager, it gives people an opportunity to look at some homes that have been boarded up, sitting there doing nothing. They're not on the tax rolls. There's 2 up in Moody Street. And what the gentleman indicated is true. These vacant homes are just a haven for crime and so forth. So if we could get a report, vacant lots, homes that are sitting dormant, homes that could be rehabbed and put on the tax roll, that's the gist of the motion. And it will give people like the Coalition for a Better Acre an opportunity to reach out, rehab some of these homes, put them on the tax roll, but more importantly, get a home for someone to live in. So that's the gist of the motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Rita Mercier.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to add, if I could add to that tax title property and who owns it, could we have a list of tax title property and who owns it? That'd be something too. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Broderick, did you have something? Okay. Anyone else? All those in favor of the motion say aye. Any opposed? The motion's approved. Next motion, I believe, Councilor Caulfield, that's going to be withdrawn?
Yes, but I'd like to explain why.
Okay. The motion is to request a traffic survey, streets of Stephen and Chelmsford Street in the vicinity of Lowe's. Councilor?
Thank you. During the debate and the discussion about Lowe's, residents on Upham Street and Albert Street had taken a petition to make those streets one way from Stephen Street to Chelmsford Street. And I told them if Lowe's was approved, I would contact them immediately. But they were so thrilled with the Zoning Board of Appeals decision that what the chairman, Al Kazanjian, and the board did was instruct Lowe's that they could not take a right out of Wellman Street, only a right out of Wellman Street, and all the side streets, Albert Street, Victoria Street, Upland Street, Northwest Street, etc., would be only for residents only, no through traffic. So there wouldn't be any reason to take a survey or make those streets one-way. And the residents are very, very happy with the performance of the Zoning Board of Appeals, and very happy with the stipulations that they put on Lowe's. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So that motion is withdrawn. The next motion by Councilor Armin Mercier. The City Council requests the City Manager report on the use of outside counsel. Second by Councilor Rita Mercier. Councilor Armin Mercier.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. At the last meeting, when the manager explained the input on the towing contract, he mentioned the law department, police department, and he made reference to outside counsel. And that kind of perked my interest, because the last time that the need for outside counsel was brought before this council, or at least in information stage, was the complexity of Starclosa School. And I think everybody agreed at that time that that issue was so complex that the outside counsel was warranted, and I saw no problems at all in that. However, if there is a constant use of outside counsel without input from the city council, I think that we ought to take a look and see if we should establish some sort of policy coming from the city council to the manager on how that should be used. And the only reason I'm asking for a report is because once I get the report, there may not be a need for that. However, what I'm asking for is the name of the council that's been used, how many times they were used and for what purpose, and what did it cost the city, and what budget item does that cost come from? It's a simple request.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Manager?
If I may, Mr. Mayor, to the council's request, I'm happy to provide that report. I think it's an excellent question. Let me just explain, though, that generally what I've done is there have been circumstances in which we've used special counsel or outside counsel, given certain levels of expertise, or a request by the solicitor's office that there may be a particular issue that, for one reason or another, an outside counsel may be of help. It's always been my experience that an organization works best when it looks for the best advice it can get with certain areas of expertise and specialization. That's been my experience in the past, and I would anticipate that I would continue with that type of philosophy. But I'm more than happy to get that for the council so that they understand how we're utilizing outside counsel.
Once we get the report, then we can make a judgment on whether or not there should be a policy established.
Okay, thank you. Anyone further? All those in favor of the motion say aye. Any opposed? Motion's approved. Next motion by Councilor Broderick. The City Council requests the City Auditor Clerk Oversight Subcommittee meet to develop a process for the evaluation of the new City Auditor. Second by Councilor Donahue. Councilor Broderick.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The motion speaks for itself. During the hiring process, we spoke of an evaluation process for Ms. Wright, the new auditor, and you had your one-week honeymoon, so I thought it would be a good idea to get started on setting the parameters and what the expectations are going to be. And in light of the DOR assessment being done, I thought that we could start jotting down our own ideas, but perhaps postpone a subcommittee meeting till we get the assessment from DOR, because I think they're going to have some input as to what we should be receiving for reports and so on, and what is a timely fashion. So I think that obviously Ms. Wright is going to have some ideas as to what she is expecting to provide us in what timeline. So I think that if we get prepared to have a meeting, get input from all the councilors, and come up with an evaluation process early on, excuse me, to be fair to the auditor. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Donahue, did you?
No, I was just going to say, I think this is a good motion, especially, early on, now that Ms. Wright's here, so that we can establish, communication expectations of the council, and the auditor can let us know what kind of information can be provided. So I support the motion. I think it's a good start.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Manager, do we know when we anticipate that DOR assessment?
I believe I spoke with the lead person from DOR just this past Friday, and I think they're anticipating that this will be, they wanted to have an opportunity to have Ms. Wright on board, give her a chance to look at her part of the organization, and they'll be back to speak with her, and I anticipate that they'll be done by the beginning to the middle of March.
Okay. Okay, thank you. I believe that concludes the agenda. All those in favor of the motion, say aye. Any opposed? The motion's approved. Motion to adjourn by Councilor Armin Mercier, seconded by Councilor Ramirez. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? We'll stand adjourned. Remember, next week, 5:30. 5:30 next week.
We go in the morning and then